The annual Parker family reunion was in full swing at my uncle's estate, the kind of gathering where success was measured in square footage and stock portfolios. I stood in a corner, watching my cousin Marcus hold court near the imported marble fireplace, a glass of champagne in his hand, entertaining everyone with tales of his latest business triumph. "Another record quarter," he announced, adjusting his Rolex, which he probably bought on credit. "Parker Technologies is expanding again. We just leased the entire top floor of the Diamond Tower downtown." I hid my smile behind my wine glass. The Diamond Tower, my latest real estate acquisition, purchased through one of my small shell companies. Marcus had no idea he had negotiated his incredible deal with one of my property managers. "Zara," my Aunt Beverly's shrill voice broke through my thoughts. "Come, join us. Why don't you tell everyone about your, what do you call it? Your little shop?" I turned, returning her condescending smile with practiced patience. At 32, I owned half the commercial real estate in the city through my investment firm. But to my family, I was just Sarah with her cute little vintage clothing store downtown. "It's doing well, Aunt Beverly," I replied quietly. "Thanks for asking." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. "Still playing shopkeeper, cousin? You know, if you ever want to see how real business works, I could give you a tour of my company. Show you what real success looks like." The irony almost made me choke on my drink. Marcus's success consisted mainly of overleveraged expansions and desperate attempts to impress investors. His company was 3 months behind on rent in my building. "That's very kind of you, Marcus," I said, maintaining my humble facade. My cousin Emma, fresh from her latest shopping spree with Daddy's credit card, joined the conversation. "Zara, dear, when are you going to take your future seriously? You can't play with dresses forever." If only they knew. My little shop was actually a front for my real estate empire, the Monarch Investment Group. I had started small, buying a rundown shop 7 years ago with my savings. Now I owned prime commercial properties worth billions, all hidden behind layers of companies and holding companies. "I'm happy where I am," I replied. Uncle Richard, Marcus's father and self-proclaimed family patriarch, scoffed. "Contentment isn't enough in this family, Zara. Look at Marcus, expanding his tech company and making real moves in the business world. That's the Parker way." I watched as Marcus basked in his father's praise, remembering how different things had been just a few years ago. When I first opened my shop, Marcus had been the first to mock me. "Retail is dead," he had announced at the Christmas party. But I guess some people just aren't cut out for bigger things. Now, his company's survival depended on the very property he didn't know I owned. "Speaking of expansion," Marcus announced, swirling his champagne. "We just signed a contract to take over the entire west wing of the Diamond Tower. 40,000 square feet of prime office space. The landlord was practically begging us to take it. Several relatives murmured their approval. I suppressed a laugh, knowing the truth. My property manager had actually increased the rent by 20% during negotiations, and Marcus had agreed out of desperation to keep up appearances. "Must be expensive," I commented innocently. Marcus waved it off. "This is what success looks like, Zara. Not everyone can understand the complexity of high-level business deals. Some of us are made for bigger things than running a small shop." Just then, my phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Diamond Tower Management. "Excuse me," I said, stepping aside. "I have to take this." "Probably a customer asking about vintage sweaters," Marcus whispered, earning chuckles from the assembled relatives. I answered the call, deliberately putting it on speaker. "Yes, Mr. Harrison," my property manager's voice filled the air. "Ms. Parker, sorry to bother you, but we need your decision on the Diamond Tower situation. Parker Technologies is 3 months behind on rent, and their last check bounced. Should we proceed with the eviction notices?" Marcus's champagne glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the imported tile floor. "Furthermore," Mr. Harrison continued, "their proposal to lease the West Wing has been rejected by the board. Given their payment history, we don't consider them financially stable enough for an expansion." The room had gone silent. All eyes were on me as I calmly reached into my handbag and pulled out a folder. The complete lease agreement for Parker Technologies, with my signature as the owner of the Diamond Tower on the last page. Actually, I said, my voice carrying in the silence, I think it's time we discussed the terms of your lease in person, cousin. The silence in the room was absolute. Marcus stared at the lease in my hands, his face alternating between shades of red and white. And Beverly's perfectly Botoxed expression was frozen in shock. And Uncle Richard looked like he needed his heart medication. This has to be a joke, Marcus finally stammered. You're just a shopkeeper. I smiled and placed the lease on the marble coffee table. Actually, the vintage shop is more of a hobby. The Monarch Investment Group is my real business. Emma, who had been frantically scrolling on her phone, gasped. Monarch Investment, the company that owns half the commercial real estate downtown. Among other things, I replied, taking a sip of wine. We've been quite busy lately. Just acquired the Marina District development, the Westview office complex, and, I paused for effect, the entire Diamond Tower. Uncle Richard's hand trembled as he reached for the lease. But Monarch is a billion-dollar company. The papers say it's run by a mysterious real estate mogul who never appears in public. Sarah Parker, CEO, I said, mockingly extending my hand. Although I prefer to stay out of the limelight. It's amazing what people reveal about themselves when they think you're just a small business owner. Marcus collapsed onto the Italian leather sofa, loosening his tie. The rent increase, the rejection of the expansion. That was all you. Business is business, cousin. Speaking of which, I pulled out my phone. Should I instruct Mr. Harrison to proceed with the eviction notices? You can't do that, Marcus pleaded, his arrogance gone. We have contracts, agreements. Which you've all broken by not paying rent for 3 months, I scrolled through my emails. Not to mention the bounced checks, the unauthorized office renovations, and the interesting creative accounting in your submitted financial statements. And Beverly stepped forward, her social climber instincts kicking in. Zara, darling, surely we can work something out. We're family, after all. Family, I laughed softly. Let's talk about family. I opened another folder on my phone and projected it onto the huge television screen that dominated one wall. 2016, Marcus tells everyone my shop will fail within 6 months. 2017. Uncle Richard advises his golf club friends not to do business with me because I'm just pretending to be an entrepreneur. 2018, and Beverly suggests I should focus on finding a husband instead of wasting time with retail. The photos and recordings played across the screen, years of subtle insults, dismissive comments, and condescending advice, all meticulously documented. 2019, I continued. Emma here starts a rumor that my shop is a money laundering front because, and I quote, how else could someone so simple afford that location? I smiled at my cousin. The answer, Emma, is that I owned the building. But why did you keep it a secret? Marcus asked. Why pretend to be small? Because money doesn't just reveal who you are. It reveals who everyone else is. I went to the bar and poured myself another glass of wine. Every lease application that landed on my desk, every business proposal, every investment opportunity. I saw how you all treated people you thought were beneath you. Uncle Richard's face darkened. Now listen here, young lady. No, you listen, I interrupted. The latest loan application from Parker Technologies, rejected by 3 banks this month. Do you want to guess who owns the controlling interest in those banks? Marcus turned pale. The expansion plans. Our investors. They'll be very interested to learn the true financial situation of your company, I said, picking up the lease. Unless. Unless what? Marcus asked desperately. Unless we renegotiate. Not just the lease, but everything. I sat down in Uncle Richard's favorite armchair. The one he never let anyone else use. First, Parker Technologies will undergo a complete restructuring. New management, new board, new direction. You're taking over my company. Marcus whispered. I'm actually saving it, although your role will be significantly reduced. I smiled. Consider it a learning opportunity. You wanted to show me how real business works, remember? Emma tried to sneak out of the room, but I wasn't finished. Oh, and Emma? The boutique you wanted to open with Daddy's money? The lease you signed last week for that prime location on 5th Avenue. She froze. What about it? Monarch owns that building too. Unfortunately, the space was just leased to another tenant. My vintage shop is expanding. The room erupted in chaos. Marcus buried his face in his hands, probably calculating how quickly his carefully constructed image of success would crumble. Emma burst into tears, her boutique dreams dissolving into thin air. And Beverly looked like she had swallowed her expensive pearls. My phone buzzed again. Miss Parker, your helicopter is waiting. The investors from Singapore are expecting you for dinner. Thanks, Harrison. I stood up and smoothed my simple dress. A one-of-a-kind piece that cost more than Marcus's car. I should go. Real business is calling. Wait, Marcus jumped up. What about Parker Technologies? What about our lease? Check your emails tomorrow. My lawyers will be in touch with the details of the restructuring. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Marcus, the rent is going up another 20%. That's what success looks like, cousin. Uncle Richard finally found his voice again. Zara, please. Think about what you're doing to this family. I have thought about ET for 7 years. I've thought about every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time you make me feel small. I turned to them one last time. Now you know how it feels. As I walked out to my waiting helicopter, I heard the chaos erupt behind me. My phone started buzzing with messages. Marcus. Please, we need to talk about the company. Emma, Zara, I'm so sorry for everything that happened. And Beverly, darling, let's discuss this over lunch at the club. Uncle Richard, this is not the Parker way of doing business. I smiled and typed a single reply into the family group chat. Unfortunately, I'm too busy playing shopkeeper to reply. Feel free to stop by my little shop if you need anything. I hear the rents in this area are quite affordable. At least, when you own the building. The next morning, my assistant handed me the daily reports. Parker Technologies stock dropped 30% overnight. Rumors about their financial stability are spreading. As expected. Your cousin Emma has applied for a job at your vintage shop. She included a very groveling apology letter. File it with the others. And your Uncle Richard wants to know if you'll be attending the next family reunion. I looked up from my desk, where I was finalizing the acquisition of another office tower. This one housed several of my relatives' struggling businesses. Tell him I'll have to check my schedule. Running a small shop keeps me pretty busy. And the expansion of the vintage shop. Proceeding as planned. Although, I smiled, maybe we should add a section for designer accessories. I hear Emma has a sizable collection she'll need to sell soon. My phone buzzed one last time. Marcus, probably with another desperate plea to save his company. I turned off the phone and focused on my empire. Because success isn't just about owning buildings. It's about building something that towers over those who once looked down on you. And I was just getting started. The next family reunion would be very interesting. Especially since I had just bought Uncle Richard's estate at a foreclosure auction. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a lease and an eviction notice.